Imagine
A podcast.
where time drifts slowly,
A podcast.
where
Isaac.
carries you away.
So let me be clear. We tortured some folks.
We did it. We did it, Joe. You're gonna be the next president of the United States.
You go to hell.
All right. Let me ask you something. If the rule you followed brought you to this, of what use was the rule?
You could have the money, Anton.
Yes. So here we are again. Trump is president of the United States of America. It's like our politics, our world is the movie industry, and they have no new ideas, so they just keep remaking the same old story over and over again. Although I suppose a more appropriate Hollywood remake would be like, Lady Ghostbusters. It would be like a Lady Trump, but we're not there yet. But the moral arc of the universe, right, guys? That moral arc of the universe bends towards what exactly? I've always found it very frustrating. This moral arc, belief, ideology of libs. I think it's mostly liberals, myself included, who have been attracted to that expression. I think Obama had said it a few times.
We've all been struck by the courage of people. And I mentioned this, I think, in a statement that I made a couple of days ago. Some of you who had been covering my campaigns know this is one of my favorite expressions, was Dr. King's expression that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. We have to believe that ultimately justice will prevail.
And it's a pretty expression. Like it's very beautiful. Moral arc, a moral arc. That's very nice, right? Except it's not real. You know, libs treat it like it's like the third law of thermodynamics. Things have to get better, right? The universe wants us to be happy, right? That's the woo-woo liberal nonsense that we hear a lot these days. But it ain't true. I don't think that there's some sort of arc. I think when I've heard that expression, I think of like a quarterback arcing a football to somebody. But I guess it depends on who's throwing it, maybe. It ain't a straight line. It doesn't bend. It's perfect for liberals, though, because it's the perfect sort of passivity that they love, that is part of their belief that, with minimal effort, it's just going to happen. You don't have to do anything. That's the direction that it arcs in. And that is the liberal ideology of pragmatism and compromise, which is the only vision they seem to have to offer. So here we are. I've always loved that quote by Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men. I've never quite understood exactly what it meant, though, because of who's saying it and what's happening. But it does seem like the Democratic Party needs to ask itself, these rules that you have followed of pragmatism and compromise and moderation and allowing Dick Cheney back into your orbit, it brought us here. Does it work? I don't think so. And so if there is a silver lining in this defeat, is that it's time to fucking abandon the Democratic Party. Now, first, I gotta eat some crow. I thought Kamala was gonna win. This was based on a handful of things. Some of it were pollsters who were saying things I liked, I suppose. But selfishly, it was because I didn't want things to change too much. I think my main metric, the tea leaves that I use to read the world, that I've used these past several years, is that whatever Elon Musk says will be, the opposite is true. Well, I guess my metric isn't so solid, and now I have to tinker with the math to see why that might be. But I did not vote for Kamala, and I didn't have to. I've said this many times. I'm in Florida, and it didn't make a difference. And those people who sent me those polls showing Kamala within a point of Trump in the state of Florida, I dismissed it then, and I feel at least vindicated there. But yes, I had the luxury of holding myself to a very simple principle, a very basic red line, in that I would not vote for anyone who supports genocide. And I feel okay about that. I feel like I did the right thing. I think I preferred Kamala in the long run to psychoanalyze why I thought she might win, was because I think deep down I wanted her to, because things are okay for me, selfishly. I wanted Kamala because it's about to be incredibly annoying and awful and cringe. And it won't just be the Elon freaks and the crypto evangelists and the Zoomer Nazis who will be emboldened to be more intolerable than ever before. The libs are going to be terrible too. And they're already doing it. These CNN pundits who have already started to explain why she might have lost. One was, and this is great, that she wasn't supportive of Israel enough, actually.
And I think there was this very powerful ad, the Republican Jewish Coalition, that was all over the airwaves. A bunch of women sitting around, Jewish women, just saying, I can't stand him, but I felt like we were supporting Israel and we were stronger and we were tougher. And I think that resonates with people.
And then to your point, the ad that came out that was beating Kamala up around fear about Israel not being protected. There was never a response from the campaign on that, which I thought was a big mistake. Amanda Berman from Zioness had to raise money running her own ads trying to fight back alone. That didn't work. So, but listen, you tied her to the economy, you tied her to Biden, you tied her to weird, and it was not a good
I agree with everything you're saying.
It wasn't that she didn't do the obvious polling, the polls that showed that people would have supported a ceasefire or an arms embargo against Israel in these quote-unquote battleground states were completely dismissed. Now, this isn't the only reason why Kamala lost, but it is funny that they're already they're back to licking Israel's boots. They literally cannot help themselves. But I think what I found particularly frustrating about this election cycle, as I've found frustrating about every election cycle, is the emphasis on voting. I had a few of my followers accuse me of voter suppression because I said I wouldn't vote for Kamala. Now, I never said don't vote. I've made this explicitly clear that I always vote, and I did vote. And most everything I voted for lost. But again, this is this liberal passivity, this moral arcing that all you have to do is vote every 2 to 4 years, and that's how democracy works. They equate democracy with just the act of voting every 2 to 4 years, and then not paying attention whatsoever in between. I find that to be immensely frustrating, and perhaps now they see that, yeah, that's not how it works. We've turned voting, for me at least, into a humiliation ritual. I voted for Biden in 2020 and Hillary in 2016, Obama in 08 and 2012. And each time it progressively got stinkier, just like way, way stinkier. Holding your nose every time you vote, it's not right. This lesser of two evils thing, is so deeply cynical to me. And I've lost some people in my life simply because I said I wouldn't vote for Kamala. I have a friend he owns a wine shop. I went to buy wine a couple months ago, and we just got to talking, and it was fun, just shooting the shit. And he talks forever, and I was, slowly trying to back out with this bottle of wine in my hand. And as I was reaching the door, he said, "So, what about Kamala?" And this was right around when Biden stepped down and she was anointed. Remember, we didn't pick her; they picked her for us, which they did in 2022, if you remember correctly, when they coalesced against Bernie Sanders, who also I don't have many great things to say about anymore. But when I told him, and this was a total mistake on my part, I should have known better, that I wouldn't be voting for her, he was outraged. And as much as I tried to explain to him my reasoning, he wouldn't have it. And he's a comfortable live. He sells wine for a living. He sells expensive bottles of wine. It's like the perfect bourgeois liberal position in the world today. He proceeded to send me a slew of very long text walls of just absolute condescension, and he wouldn't have it. He did tell me, and I thought it was funny. He said, "If Trump wins, I'm moving to Canada." And I guffawed when he said that to me, because that's just like bullshit. It's like they don't want to fight. They don't want to do anything. They're so comfortable. And perhaps that's the silver lining. One of the things I said in the previous episode, when Max said I was black-pilled, was that even a Kamala victory, which I thought was going to happen, was a worst-case scenario in my mind, because I thought the Democrats will have learned nothing. They will have seen this absolute failure upwards by courting Dick Cheney and these supposed disaffected Republicans that literally do not exist into their fold. Like David Frum, you already got the guy. Like, who else were they trying to reach for? So I worried that a Kamala victory would just keep us on this slow march to annihilation. And by the time we actually got there, to the point where we can actually change things, it will have been too late. And this is where I start to what else do I have to believe in but some kind of accelerationism? That Trump is going to be bad. It's going to be worse under Trump, undoubtedly. But we need to get there sooner rather than later, because the sooner we get there, the faster we can change things. But I don't even know that either. I mean, at this rate with climate crisis, we will have gone too far, probably. It's a lose-lose situation, and I think that's the real tragedy of it all. I have noticed a much different response this go around to Trump's victory. There's a lot less crying, perhaps. I mean, there was that famous woman, that poor woman, who was wearing that beanie and that green jacket, who's just going, "No, no!"
Donald J. Trump is now President of the United States. President Obama is the ex-president. And Mr. Trump, for the moment, steps away.
And it became just absolute mana for conservatives to point at and laugh. So, little advice I can give any of my fellow libs here is don't cry. Don't give them that yum 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 they love so much, because that's what they feed off of, and that's all it is. Again, it's all just grievances, and I don't think anybody services the American grievance greater than Donald Trump. So the Democratic Party will do its best to stay alive, because like everything in this country, it is a profit-seeking machine. And how many billions of dollars did Kamala spend enriching these think tanks and these consultants within the Democratic apparatus? They win. They win no matter what. You know, my father loves to talk about politics as like sports. And I'm reluctant to agree with him just because it's so obvious. But the more and more I see it, the more he's right. Because what you have are two football teams playing against each other, right? And whether one team wins or loses, I mean, there's a point of pride involved in it, but the owners of both clubs profit either way. And the only win that the people who support these teams get is a feeling. It's a feeling of victory. There's no material benefit to these people. Maybe if you own like a merchandise shop, but that's nothing. So it really is just two owners of football clubs playing against each other, eking out wins, entertaining the masses, and walking home with the bag of money, and the people who are watching it just get to go home to their little hovels. So yeah, will the Democratic Party have learned anything? If the past few days are any evidence, I would say no, they haven't. They will not take responsibility. I'm already seeing a lot of progressive folks say, well, if you look at globally, like, all incumbents are losing because of inflation. Also, actually, I had someone tell me Kamala ran a great campaign. It's just these slight wobbles. Again, there's the word wobble. These minor percentage points in these battleground states that really determined it. And otherwise, she ran a great campaign. I'd say if you lose, it's a bad campaign, right? I mean, the point is to win. But maybe the point isn't to win for our elites, our leaders. They win either way. I don't think Wall Street's sweating. Silicon Valley already threw all their weight behind Trump, so they're great. You know, it's very frustrating to see this, and to me, it's deeply cynical that everything is determined by these electoral metrics, these tactics that these people get paid millions of dollars to explain to us. And how does it pan out? I don't know. But yeah, I think that if there's anything that we can do, it's punish this typical liberal response to things, comparing it to, you know, Star Wars and Return of the Jedi or Harry Potter or Hunger Games. It's like they literally have no other stories to tell themselves about how things actually work. And this ain't the Marvel universe, okay? We are already seeing a blue version of election denial. I've seen some funny people explain, like, how could we 10 million less votes? Kamala got 10 million less votes than Joe Biden. She literally didn't do better in any metric except for people who make over $100,000. How is that possible? How is that possible? So I'm seeing them talk about how Elon Musk's Starlink sucked up votes from people in swing states, which is like, okay, well, what the fuck are you gonna do about it? And this is where I have like this begrudging respect for the January Sixers. This is something I said to that wine guy that made him really upset. Because he hates violence. He's non-violent. Violence is politics. Maybe we'll get to that later. But again, at least with these Trump supporters who believed that, you know, life itself was at stake, the future of this country and their families and their livelihood was threatened by Biden's stealing of the election. This is how bad the Democrats were. And so what they did was they put their bodies on the line and they risked life and limb and their freedom to stop it. And I have to show some kind of respect for that because they're doing actual democracy. It's not just voting, because as we see it, voting doesn't really work. So what else are you going to do? posting and complaining, not I'm guilty of that for sure. But there's so much more than just filling in a little bubble every couple of years. So again, if you think Trump is this existential threat, not just to marginalized people, but to life itself, what are you gonna do? I do not expect a liberal January 6th. We've already seen Biden and Kamala Harris happily accept the results. Biden himself said, and I quote, "We will have a peaceful transfer of power in America. We accept the choice the country made." Kamala said, "Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory." So, how much of an existential threat is this really? I think liberals love to be perceived as morally superior, as they love patting themselves on the back for their moral righteousness. It's like, yes, this is horrible, and untold people are going to suffer, the environment will collapse, but at least we respect the institution. at least we respect these rules that you guys might not follow, actually, but we follow it. And somehow that's the victory that they're going for. They don't care about winning elections. They don't care about power. They care about feeling good about themselves. And that's what this enlightened centrism is all about. It's about compromising, right? It's about not rocking the boat too much. So yes, I do hope that this changes. And if there is hope, that's what is required, is we have to stop following these stupid fucking rules. So instead of telling you practical ways of resisting, right? Non-voting ways, they're already proffering forth different potential Democratic candidates to run against Trump in 2028. Not Trump, but whoever they pick afterwards. They're saying, John Fetterman, he's a North Star, actually.
And I think Fetterman could end up being an interesting sort of North Star for the party. Right. He's a guy who's figured out how to win. He was basically a working class Democrat that has stayed a Democrat. Well, essentially, all of his brethren where he grew up are clearly have moved towards Trump. So I think Fetterman could end up playing a pretty big role in whatever the party's gonna, wherever they're going to next, because Fetterman seems to get it a little bit more than, look where he was in Israel too. So he's not been a predictable politician.
Or maybe Pete Buttigieg is the guy to go in 2028. And this is the shit that makes me want to freak the fuck out. They're already telling you to wait 4 years to do anything. In 4 years, at this rate, and with this amount of power and this kind of mandate, is a very, very long time. So what do I think is going to happen? Well, I'm afraid to predict anything because I got Kamala wrong. But I think that there are a handful of things that we can expect. With Trump, I think you're going to see more of the same but worse. Obviously, he's not going to fulfill his promises. He never does. I did see that he's already promised on his first day, his first executive order is going to be to end birthright. Like, that if you're born in this country, even if your parents aren't, that you don't get automatic citizenship. Now, he hasn't said exactly how you will get citizenship, which I guess will require a whole other bureaucratic apparatus to do so. But I don't know. He's already said he's going to deport these 20 million illegal immigrants somehow. Well, that's also going to require a massive apparatus. And I saw something, it would cost to the tune of $88 billion per year to do so. And I just don't think that they have the actual interest in doing it, because their interest is going to be in bleeding any sort of welfare, any sort of administrative state functions that this country still has. It will be the end of, of government institutions as we know it. They will be wholly privatized and shittier, obviously, far more corrupt. I mean, I think we can expect a regime of cringe corruption for the next 4 years without any real way of stopping it. I think the Project 2025 stuff, I don't think that they actually have the stomach or ability to do that stuff. Again, they'll throw bones. It's all about symbolism, right? It's all performance. It's all show. So they'll do certain things, but they'll go just far enough where at least like our GDP won't collapse and it won't put too many people in the streets. But they will need to throw bones to their bases. And so in the instance of deportations, for example, I don't think that they'll have the competency to efficiently get rid of people, nor do economically they want to, because the amount of businesses that rely on cheap labor, they're going to push back and be like, can you like actually kind of chill out on that part a little bit, at least for now? What would it look like if they actually got rid of migrant labor? Which again is awful and evil. Exploiting people and paying them wages like beneath what they're actually doing is terrible, and we should put an end to that. However, the American economy historically has been one of exploitation. So I don't see it stopping anytime soon. So let's say hypothetically they do get rid of migrant labor. Well, what replaces that? Obviously, they're not going to pay Americans fair wages. And obviously, Americans aren't going to do the back-breaking, hot as shit work of like picking fucking tomatoes in Immokalee. Like, that ain't going to happen. But you know who will pick that? You know who will do that? Prisoners. The new slaves. I mean, we already saw California vote to enshrine slavery in that state. They literally, California rejected an amendment that would stop the exploitation of prison labor. They're like, no, we're going to keep that actually. So what then? Well, with the election of Trump, the GEO Group, which is a private, quote-unquote, rehabilitation facility maker, their stocks went up 50%. I think you're going to see, if this is the reality, if this is what's going to happen, slave labor, like American slave labor, prison slave labor. That's the only way to replace it, because otherwise, how will our economy function? I mean, obviously they're not going to do the tariffs. The tariffs literally cannot work. I think you'll also see a different foreign policy for sure. I mean, I did read today that Elon Musk was on the phone with Zelensky, and Zelensky praised him for his Starlink and how much that helps them with the war against Russia. I could see Trump ending the war in Ukraine, absolutely. And it would be purely symbolic, much to the tune of the way that Biden ending the war in Afghanistan was symbolic, because right away we went back to fucking bombing people in Ukraine and Russia. So what happens then? Iran. I think Iran is the most likely candidate for the American military-industrial complex. Obviously, Trump's ties with Israel are undeniable, and I can't imagine it being any worse in Gaza than it already is, but it ain't going to stop. And it wasn't going to stop if Kamala got elected either. But you'll see more than Iran. I mean, I think you're going to see the war hawks descend. I mean, Mike Pompeo has already been promised some position in Trump's administration. So what will they do? Invade Mexico? Invade Cuba to satisfy the Florida bloc of Cuban expats? Venezuela? I mean, those are much more feasible than fucking war with China. But anybody who thought that Trump wasn't some kind of war hawk is a fucking idiot. So give me a break there. I think you can expect a lot of bloodletting. They will need enemies. The conservatives their entire ideology, besides like triggering the libs, is having some kind of enemy. And I think you're going to see some interesting purges. I think you're going to see the threat of communism in America. Trump already promised to deport Hamas supporters, which means anyone who's critical of Israel. That part's going to be very interesting, because a big portion of Trump's base are anti-Semitic, and they hate Israel. And so I think it'll be criticism of Israel for me, but not for thee. And they will just kind of like handpick people that they want to suffer. And when there's not enough, when it's clear by Trump's base that it's not working, that he's not doing what they're going to do, I think you can see lots of extrajudicial violence. I think you'll see people deport other people with a fucking bullet in the brain or something along those lines. There will be these shows of violence, much like the way they do in El Salvador when, Bukele sends in like 2,000 soldiers into a little village to remove, quote unquote, all the drug dealers. Like it's all just gonna be performance. The great Whitney Webb has been losing a lot of followers recently for her criticism of the Trump campaign. If you don't know, she's an investigative reporter. She's a libertarian, anarchist type. Doesn't share my politics exactly, but she laid this all out pretty recently, to much blowback from her Trump supporting base. She says Trump's transition team says RFK will not actually have a role at the HHS and will only have access to vaccine data, contrary to what was promoted publicly. Last time Trump was in office, he extensively deregulated GMO crops and plants. J.D. Vance, Vivek, and Musk are deeply invested in biotech, including biotech quote-unquote health products like mRNA vaccines, which Trump supported last time via Operation Warp Speed, and has yet to issue a public apology for his COVID-era policies. Speaking of those policies, Trump let Larry Fink design COVID-era fiscal policy. Larry Fink is a Democrat, by the way, which saw the U.S. print more money than any point in history, and which began even before a pandemic was declared, and it resulted in a massive transfer from Main Street to Wall Street. Trump campaigned in 2016 on regulating Wall Street and bringing back Glass-Steagall, but he further deregulated Wall Street instead, helping to create the 2023 banking crisis that began with SVB. Trump campaigned as loving WikiLeaks, but then let Mike Pompeo plot to imprison and murder Assange, and refused to pardon Assange, but pardoned financial criminal Michael Milken instead. The guy responsible for going after Assange, Pompeo, is still in Trump's good graces and one of his top aides, and is now in charge of picking staff for Trump's new State Department. Trump didn't start any new wars, but he didn't need to because 5 are already happening, some of which he greatly expanded, and he dropped more bombs than Obama. He had a bunch of neocons in his cabinet and tried to coup Venezuela, which would have exacerbated the current migrant crisis, by the way, and killed an Iranian general on a diplomatic mission in an obvious attempt to goad Iran into war. Thank God Iran is one of the only rational actors in the world these days, it seems. This cycle, war with Iran, has been signaled by Vance, Trump, and Pompeo. So there are plenty of reasons to be very scared and skeptical of this Trump presidency. And it was a massive victory on his part. He won in every demographic. You can't say that it's white nationalism anymore. The only party that's getting whiter is the Democratic Party. So, what? Is this bumming you out? Are you guys really bummed out by what I'm saying? Yeah, it's a huge bummer, and it's very tough to find the silver linings. Although he's not even president yet, so who knows? There are some things we can look forward to. The one that I'm most looking forward to is the inevitable fallout between Trump and Elon. You know, I think Elon has a bit more sense about being friendly and cozying up to Trump and bending the knee. But if he gets too much power and too much accolades, I could see Trump sabotaging that, because we all know Trump's a petty bitch, and that's kind of why some people love him. So that's the part of him that I like, at least. So I am looking forward to this cat fight that will ensue between the two of them over who knows what. Maybe Elon just being too cringe and annoying, or taking too much credit, or just as like an ideal scapegoat. What else? The death of the Democratic Party. I mean, I wrote about this a couple years ago on my blog that said that Democrats must die, and I believe that remains true. Like, it absolutely must end. If there's something to look at, to see what America might appear to be in the next 4 years, look at my home state of Florida. Ron DeSantis is a part of the same fabric. He's cut from the same cloth as this Trump administration. And I'm not going to lie, it's not great in Florida. Like, shit is getting fucked up at every turn. And DeSantis has complete control over every level of government in the state of Florida. And so he gets to steamroll any effort against him. I mean, there was that prosecutor in Hillsborough, Andrew Warren, who DeSantis just straight up just like removed from his position. So I expect to see a lot of any effort to stymie Trump to just be swatted away. And what you saw with DeSantis was and there's nothing new. I mean, every governor, Democrats included, are constantly scamming government apparatuses, government institutions, just to give giving tax money, giving state wealth to private contractors, to business friends of theirs. And Trump is going to be no different. He will dismantle these things. It will be you can expect the FDA, the Environmental Protection Agency, every single administration, every single institution sold for parts. And how do we put that back together? It's not going to be by voting, if you guys catch my drift. So, Florida did the same thing that Trump is promising to do with migrants. We started that E-Verify system, and we scared a lot of migrants. But they're here again because, we need them. I mean, one thing, if you have been affected by any recent hurricanes, is you'll notice that there are the local municipal trash collectors have been overwhelmed by the amount of shit they have to pick up. So what do? Well, they hire subcontractors with FEMA money. And so every subcontractor I've seen and spoken to is a migrant. I didn't ask them if they were illegal or not, so I can't say one way or another. But they didn't speak English, let's put it that way. And so that's who we're going to need to just fix things in general. So in spite of DeSantis's overtures to his anti-immigration policy and his anti-immigrant supporters, they're still here, they're still working, albeit much more precariously. And so I think if you want to see the future of America, just look at Florida today. And there is some hope there, although Florida went red as fuck again. It wasn't nearly as blue as I think a lot of people had hoped. But I think you are seeing DeSantis crumble in his efforts. Part of it is he has no fucking charm. But that's the thing, is like the charm of Trump will inevitably end. Trump will die. It's got to happen at some point. The thing is you better hope it doesn't happen during this administration, because JD fucking Vance will take hold. And I've spoken about this on previous episodes. This guy is Peter Thiel, and Peter Thiel in charge of things is a pretty scary prospect. We also talked about this in my last episode with Max. We're going to see Trump versus MAGA. Like, MAGA folks are far more extreme than Trump is. Trump at heart is a moderate if he has any ideology whatsoever. He mostly just wants to be liked. And so I think he saw, especially with the end of Roe, he criticized that. He said, you've gone too far. And the Amendment 4 in Florida, which was going to enshrine abortion rights in the state of Florida, which just barely lost. Trump himself said he was going to vote for it until he kind of had to backtrack lightly on that. So Trump is really going to be the bulwark against his followers who are far more extreme than him. So, better hope he doesn't kick the can anytime soon. And maybe he's just going to be another Sleepy Joe sort of character, because his brain doesn't look as sharp as it once was. But spiritually, what does this Trump victory say about America? I'm not going to look at exit polling to determine this. This is a vibe-based thing. But again, Trump won every metric. More Latinos, more black people. I saw Trump won like 60% of the American Indian vote. Trumpism is the ideology of America right now. And so what is this thing? What is Trumpism? And I think you can see it in the way that recent immigrants talk about the immigrants right behind them, where they immediately want to pull the ladder back up. They'll say, in Spanish, no más, too many. They're voting for Trump because they want to stop immigration, even though they themselves are immigrants. I saw this guy on Twitter who lives in China talk about an interaction he had with a Chinese national who is also a massive Trump supporter. They were both picking up their kids at school, and the Chinese guy wanted to talk to the American what he thought about Trump's victory. And the American was saying how, you saw he's going to end birthright, right? And this Chinese guy apparently has an American son who was born in California. And the Chinese guy said he ultimately agreed with Trump's policy. He said, it's better if we end that, even though I personally benefited from it. But that's fine because I already benefited from it, so why should I care? And then the Chinese guy started to complain about the pricing of the declining housing prices in China, that he owns 4 apartments, but they've all gone down, even though it's better for, regular people who can possibly rent his apartment. Well, he said, he's happy to get in it when he could, when it was cheap, and preferred it to be expensive because he got in it. And, fuck everybody else who has to pay more. Like, I have mine. And again, this could be all apocryphal. It could be just some guy. But he said when he picked up his son, he cut in front of the line of everybody, grabbed his son, and there was a door, an entrance and exit door, and on the sign it said, please use the exit door. He used the entrance door, went to his luxury vehicle, which was parked on a crosswalk on a sidewalk, and drove home. And whether that's true or not, I think that it rings true to the American mentality today, which is, I gotta get mine. I don't really give a shit about anybody else. It is Ayn Rand is coming in her pants, because she's coming in her grave right now. I think what we're seeing is this naked capital nihilism of Trump's America, a Zen nihilism of the 21st century. They don't even bother pretending anymore. They know that shit is bad, but as long as they're okay in it, it's fine. And this is where it's hard to disentangle yourself from this very thing that it is to be an American. Because the truth is, we are all incredibly guilty of this. Living in America means you are benefiting from a bounty of exploitation. How am I any different from them, really? Except that I perform a kind of guilt and awareness that, oh, this is bad, we should stop this. And what these MAGA nihilists, these Zen nihilists are saying is like, yeah, it's fucked. Just enjoy yourself. Why are you being such an annoying asshole? Like, this is the end of this era of capitalism. Get what you can while the getting's good. And I can't accept that personally. Like, it's tough. But how do I disentangle myself from this? I mean, the only way I know is what Aaron Bushnell did, but I ain't gonna light myself on fire. I think that the disappointing thing is, I know a lot of billionaires, I know a lot of rich people, and they're all kind of miserable because I think every parable, every philosophy, every religion tells you that the pursuit of pure pleasure is empty, that it will not make you happy. And so I guess the question is, when are we actually going to learn that lesson?